Once upon a time, in the sprawling, vibrant city of Lagos, there lived a wealthy woman named Madam Kemi. She lived in a magnificent mansion in Lekki, a testament to her success in the textile business. But for all her wealth, Madam Kemi was known far and wide for her cruel heart and iron fist, especially towards her staff. Her tongue was sharper than a tailor's needle, and her anger hotter than the midday Lagos sun. Her staff, a small, weary group of men and women, lived in constant fear. Among them was Adana, a young woman from a humble background, whose spirit, though tested daily, refused to break. Adana was the head housekeeper, and she bore the brunt of Madam Kemi's temper. Spilled water was a flood, a misplaced cushion was a catastrophe, and a speck of dust was a personal insult to Madam Kemi. Adana and her colleagues would often whisper in the quiet corners of the massive house, sharing their woes and dreaming of a day they could be free from her tyranny. One sweltering afternoon, Madam Kemi was preparing for a grand party. She had imported the finest lace from Switzerland and the most expensive champagne from France. The house was a whirlwind of activity. Madam Kemi, in her usual fashion, barked orders, her voice echoing through the marble halls. She instructed Adana to personally handle her prized possession, a massive antique grandfather clock that had been in her family for generations. "Adana!" she shrieked. "This clock is worth more than your entire village. If so much as a scratch appears on it, you will work for me for free for the rest of your miserable life." Adana's hands trembled as she carefully polished the ornate wooden case. The other staff members watched with bated breath, praying nothing would go wrong. As the party began, the mansion was filled with Lagos's high society. Laughter and music filled the air, but in the kitchen, the staff was on edge. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the noise. It was Madam Kemi. Everyone rushed to the grand foyer. There, on the floor, lay the grandfather clock, shattered into 100 pieces. Madam Kemi's face was a mask of fury. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on Adana. You did this," she screamed, pointing a trembling finger. "You clumsy, worthless girl. You are finished." Adana stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't been near the clock since she polished it hours ago. "Madam, I swear, it wasn't me," she pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. But Madam Kemi was beyond reason. She grabbed Adana by the arm, ready to drag her out of the house and to the police station. The other staff members watched, their faces pale with fear and pity. They knew Adana was innocent, but who would dare to speak up against the formidable Madam Kemi? Just then, a small, quiet voice spoke up. It wasn't Adana. All eyes turned to Femi, the young gardener, who usually never said a word. He was known for his shy demeanor and his love for plants. "Madam," he said, stepping forward, his voice gaining strength, "I saw what happened." A hush fell over the crowd. Femi continued, "It was your son, Jude, and his friends. They were playing with a football in the foyer, and it hit the clock." All heads swiveled towards Jude, Madam Kemi's spoiled and reckless son, who was trying to hide behind a large potted plant. His face was ashen. Madam Kemi was stunned into silence. Her own son. For a moment, the entire room was still. The guests exchanged awkward glances. Then, something shifted in the atmosphere. It started with the cook, a stout woman named Mama Bose. "Yes," she said, her voice booming. "And last week, when the crystal vase broke, it was Jude who knocked it over, but you blamed the driver. Then the driver spoke up. And the money that went missing from your purse? I saw Jude take it to buy video games." One by one, the staff, who had endured years of false accusations and abuse, found their voices. The dam of fear had broken, and a flood of truth poured out. They recounted every injustice, every lie, every act of cruelty they had silently suffered. Madam Kemi stood speechless, her face turning from red to white. Her powerful friends began to quietly slip away, not wanting to be associated with the unfolding drama. She was exposed, her cruelty laid bare for all to see. In that moment, she was not the powerful Madam of Lekki, but a lonely woman, abandoned by her friends and condemned by the very people she had oppressed. She looked at the shattered clock, then at the faces of her staff, faces that no longer held fear, but a newfound strength and unity. She had lost more than a clock that day. She had lost her power. Adana looked at her colleagues, a slow smile spreading across her face. They had finally fought back, not with weapons, but with the undeniable power of the truth. From that day on, the mansion was a different place. Madame Kemi was humbled, and a new era of respect and fairness began. And as our story comes to an end, dear friend, remember every story lives on only when it is shared. So, if this story touched your heart, do not forget to subscribe, like, and share with others. You also won't want to miss the next powerful tale that awaits. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Till the next interesting story.